So by the time I got to the emergency room, my ejection fracture had gone down to 22, which, I was in heart failure.
Wow.
Bad.
That was Triple H, one of WWE's greatest champions, describing the moment his heart nearly gave out. But he's not alone. Roman Reigns has been battling leukemia since age 22. Big Show and Great Khali both share a rare condition that killed Andre the Giant. These are the WWE wrestlers you never knew were fighting deadly diseases behind the scenes. Yokozuna. When you think about the most imposing figures to ever grace a WWE ring, the name Yokozuna absolutely has to be near the very top of that list. Rodney Inoue, the man behind the legendary sumo-inspired character, became one of wrestling's most dominant forces during the early 1990s, capturing the WWF Championship on multiple occasions and headlining WrestleMania against the likes of Hulk Hogan and Bret Hart. But behind the intimidating facade of this 500-plus pound giant lay a devastating health crisis that would ultimately cut his life tragically short. The story of Yokozuna's health struggles is, in many ways, the story of professional wrestling's complicated relationship with extreme body types. Born in 1966, Rodney experienced rapid weight gain throughout his career as part of his sumo gimmick, weighing over 400 pounds by his 1992 debut and eventually peaking at over 700 pounds after leaving WWE. What audiences saw as an unstoppable monster in the ring was actually a man whose body was slowly breaking down under the immense strain of carrying all that weight. The chronic issues that plagued Yokozuna were numerous and debilitating. Constant joint pain that made even simple movements and exercise an agony, sleep apnea that robbed him of restful nights, overwhelming fatigue that sapped his energy, and increasingly severe shortness of breath that made performing in the ring more difficult with each passing match. Yet, in the tradition of professional wrestlers who pushed through pain that would sideline ordinary people, Yokozuna continued to perform, hiding his suffering behind the stoic expression of his character. By 1996, WWE released Yokozuna after he repeatedly failed weight-related physical examinations. Rather than taking this as a sign to focus on his health, the former champion continued wrestling on the independent circuit, where the demands were often just as grueling, but the medical oversight was significantly less rigorous. His mobility continued to deteriorate, and depression began to take hold as his once glorious career seemed to slip further and further away. The end came on October 23, 2000, when Yokozuna was found dead in his Liverpool hotel room. The autopsy revealed pulmonary edema, a dangerous accumulation of fluid in the lungs, combined with a massive heart attack. Further examination showed severe coronary artery disease and a dangerously enlarged heart, the inevitable consequences of years of extreme obesity, placing unbearable strain on his cardiovascular system. Perhaps what makes Yokozuna's story so tragic is how his genuine health crisis was dismissed by many as simply being part of his gimmick. His labored breathing during matches was masked as character work, and WWE promoted his size as a source of invincibility rather than acknowledging the very real medical concerns. He was just 34 years old when he passed away, the youngest death on our list, and a heartbreaking reminder that sometimes the most dangerous opponents our heroes face aren't inside the ring at all. Speaking of wrestlers whose enormous physical stature masked devastating health conditions, our next legend story takes us back even further in wrestling history to examine one of the most beloved giants the industry has ever known, Andre the Giant. If there was ever a performer who truly embodied the term larger than life, it was Andre Rene Roussimoff, known to wrestling fans around the world as Andre the Giant. Standing at over 7 feet tall and weighing in excess of 500 pounds during his prime, Andre was a genuine phenomenon, a man whose very presence could fill an arena and whose legendary status has only grown in the decades since his passing. But the same condition that made Andre a giant among men was also slowly killing him from the inside out. Andre suffered from acromegaly, a hormonal disorder caused by a tumor on the pituitary gland that results in excessive growth hormone production. Left untreated, this condition doesn't just make you tall, it causes your organs to enlarge, your bones to thicken, and places tremendous strain on every system in your body. It is a highly deadly condition when left untreated, as the organ enlargement and heart strain can prove fatal, especially compared to treated giants who receive proper medical intervention. The symptoms of Andre's condition began manifesting during his teenage years, though he wouldn't receive an official diagnosis until sometime in the 1970s. By that point, the damage was already being done. run. Andre lived with constant, agonizing joint and back pain that would have incapacitated most people. Severe headaches plagued him regularly. Arthritis had set into his massive frame, requiring him to wear braces that were carefully hidden from the cameras and the fans who adored him. His legendary WrestleMania 3 match against Hulk Hogan, which he wrestled through absolutely excruciating agony. He turned increasingly to alcohol to manage his pain. The stories of Andre's drinking are the stuff of legend themselves, with tales of him consuming over 100 beers in a single sitting. What peace with his fate, or perhaps the idea of brain surgery was simply too daunting. Whatever his reasons, Andre chose to live out his remaining years on his own terms. Throughout his career, Andre publicly denied the severity of his condition, dismissing questions about his size by claiming he was simply naturally big. He masked his pain with alcohol and his trademark good humor, avoiding doctors whenever cameras were around, while WWE promoted his image of invincibility. On January 27, 1993, Andre the Giant passed away in his sleep at a hotel in Paris, France. His mobility had completely collapsed by that point, and his heart, massively enlarged from decades of strain, finally gave out. He was just 46 years old, a titan taken far too soon by a condition that modern medicine could have managed if only he had sought more aggressive treatment earlier in his life, one that attacked from within and spread with terrifying speed. Big John Studd. In the golden age of professional wrestling, few names commanded as much respect and fear as Big John Studd. Standing at an imposing 6'10" and weighing over 350 pounds, John Minton was the kind of competitor who could make even the most confident challengers think twice before stepping into the ring. His feuds with Andre the Giant and Hulk Hogan are the stuff of wrestling legend, and his career achievements cemented his place in WWE history. But just a few years after his greatest triumphs, Studd would find himself facing an opponent that no amount of strength or determination could defeat. In 1993, Big John Studd received a diagnosis that would change everything: Hodgkin's lymphoma. The cancer had been discovered after Studd began experiencing persistent swelling and overwhelming fatigue, symptoms he had initially dismissed as the normal wear and tear of a wrestling career. What followed was a brutal battle that would test every ounce of the legendary wrestler's famous toughness. This aggressive dual cancer diagnosis, the treatment became even more aggressive and even more devastating to his body. The chemotherapy caused his hair to fall out in clumps. Constant nausea made eating nearly impossible. His immune system, battered by the treatment, left him vulnerable to infections that his once mighty body would have easily fought off. The weight dropped from his massive frame, and the man who had once seemed indestructible began. In 1995, Studd spent extensive periods hospitalized, enduring unbearable pain as his organs began to fail. True to the code of wrestlers of his generation, he had kept his illness intensely private. He continued to wrestle until late 1994, downplaying his symptoms as just a bug when questions arose. After his diagnosis became undeniable, he isolated himself, choosing to fight his final battle away from the spotlight that had defined his career. 47 years old, another giant taken far too young, another reminder of the fragility that lies beneath even the most imposing exterior. His story remains one of the most heartbreaking in wrestling history, a testament to both the cruelty of disease and the quiet dignity with which some choose to face the end. Speaking of legendary figures whose health battles shocked the wrestling world, our next story involves one of the most electrifying and controversial personalities to ever step between the ropes, a man whose final public appearance would prove eerily prophetic. Ultimate Warrior. There has perhaps never been a more intense, more electrifying, more absolutely explosive presence in professional wrestling than the Ultimate Warrior. James Hellwig, the man who would legally change his name to Warrior, was a phenomenon unlike anything the industry had ever seen. His sprinting entrances, his rope-shaking intensity, and his seemingly superhuman energy made him one of the most popular performers of the late 1980s and early 1990s. His iconic victory over Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania 6 remains one of the defining moments in wrestling history. But behind that incredible physique and boundless energy, Warrior's heart was being slowly destroyed by atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease, a condition in which plaque builds up inside the arteries, restricting blood flow and placing enormous strain on the heart. This sudden heart attack, caused by plaque buildup and an enlarged heart linked to years of physical strain, came without any prior public symptoms, making it a shocking and fatal blow. Years of intense physical training, combined with what many have speculated included steroid use common in that era of wrestling, had taken a devastating toll on his cardiovascular system. In early April 2014, Warrior returned to the WWE family after years of estrangement. He was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame on April 5th, delivering an emotional speech that moved many longtime fans to tears. The following night, he appeared on Monday Night Raw, delivering a promo that would prove to be hauntingly prophetic, speaking of mortality and legacy in terms that would take on devastating new meaning just hours later. In what would be his final public address, the Warrior stood in that ring and spoke words that now echo through wrestling history.
Every man's heart one day beats its final beat. His lungs breathe their final breath. And if what that man did in his life makes the blood pulse through the body of others and makes them believe deeper in something than larger than life, then his essence, his spirit will be immortalized.
Less than 24 hours after speaking those words, on April 8, 2014, the Ultimate Warrior collapsed while walking to his car outside his hotel. He had been experiencing a cough, fatigue, and breathing issues during the Hall of Fame weekend and had planned to see a doctor, but time ran out before he could keep that appointment. The autopsy revealed the full extent of his condition: severe atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease and acromegaly, an enlarged heart that had been pushed beyond its limits. He was 54 years old, gone in an instant with no warning and no goodbye. The timing of his death, coming immediately after his reconciliation with WWE and his beautiful speech about mortality, gave his passing an almost supernatural quality that fans and fellow wrestlers alike still struggle to comprehend. Throughout his life, Warrior had never publicly disclosed any heart problems. His death came as a complete shock to everyone who knew him, a sudden and devastating end to a life that had burned so brightly. In retrospect, those final words in that Raw promo seem less like a speech and more like a farewell, a Warrior's final message to the world he had entertained for so long. While the Ultimate Warrior's heart condition proved fatal before treatment could be sought, our next legend faced a similar life-threatening cardiac crisis, but this time, the story has a different ending. Triple H. Paul Levesque, better known to wrestling fans worldwide as Triple H, is one of the most accomplished performers in WWE history. A 14-time world champion, a founding member of D-Generation X, a master manipulator as a villain, and an unstoppable force as a hero, Triple H has done it all inside the squared circle. Beyond his in-ring career, he has become one of the most influential executives in professional wrestling, shaping the future of the industry through his work in talent development and creative direction. But in 2021, this seemingly invincible titan was brought to his knees by an enemy he never saw coming. What many fans didn't know was that Triple H had a family history of heart problems. His father had undergone bypass surgery at 62, and cardiovascular disease ran through his family tree like an unwelcome inheritance. Despite this genetic predisposition, Triple H had always maintained an incredibly rigorous fitness regimen, seemingly defying the odds through sheer willpower and dedication to his physical condition. But in 2021, viral pneumonia triggered a cascade of events that would nearly cost Triple H his life. The infection caused fluid to build up around his heart, placing extraordinary strain on an organ that was already genetically predisposed to failure. This near-death experience, with his ejection fraction plummeting to just 12 to 22%, combined genetic factors with pneumonia to trigger catastrophic heart failure. What happened next was nothing short of terrifying. In a candid interview with ESPN's Stephen Smith, Triple H described the rapid deterioration of his condition in terms that are genuinely difficult to hear.
So by the time I got to the emergency room, my ejection fracture had gone down to 22, which, I was in heart failure. Bad.
To put those numbers in perspective, a healthy heart has an ejection fraction, the percentage of blood pumped out with each beat, of around 55 to 70%. At 12%, Triple H's heart was barely functioning at all. He was, quite literally, on the verge of death. The emergency surgery that followed saved his life, but it also ended his in-ring career. Doctors implanted a defibrillator to monitor and regulate his heart rhythm, a permanent reminder of just how close he came to losing everything. In 2022, Triple H officially announced his retirement from in-ring competition. The cerebral assassin, the King of Kings, the Game, all those personas were retired from active competition. True to his private nature, Triple H had been quiet about his condition during his recovery, only revealing the full extent of his health crisis later. Today, he continues to manage his condition with ongoing medical supervision, channeling his legendary intensity into his executive role rather than his in-ring performances. Triple H's survival story offers hope, but not every battle against deadly disease ends with retirement and recovery. Sometimes, the fight goes on indefinitely, requiring constant vigilance and management, as our next legend knows all too well. Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns, the tribal chief, the head of the table, the needle, has spent the past several years as arguably the biggest star in professional wrestling. His dominant championship reign, his incredible character work, and his main event matches have made him the undisputed face of WWE. But before he became the industry's biggest heel, before the Acknowledge Me era, Roman Reigns faced a battle that had nothing to do with championships or main events. Liati Joseph Anoa'i, the man behind Roman Reigns, has been living with chronic myeloid leukemia, a potentially fatal blood cancer, since 2007, when he was just 22 years old. This potentially fatal blood cancer, with its relapses and requirement for lifelong medication management, represents an ongoing battle that continues to this day. The initial diagnosis came during Reigns' football career, derailing his promising athletic trajectory and forcing him to begin treatment immediately. Remarkably, he achieved remission relatively quickly and was able to transition to professional wrestling, eventually becoming one of the most pushed performers in WWE history. For over a decade, he kept his health battle private, performing night after night while knowing that the cancer could return at any moment. And in October 2018, it did. In one of the most emotional moments in Monday Night Raw history, Roman Reigns stood in the ring and addressed the WWE Universe with heartbreaking honesty. The announcement sent shockwaves through the wrestling world. Fans who had spent years booing Reigns for his perceived overpush suddenly rallied behind him with overwhelming support. The response was a reminder that, beyond the characters and storylines, these performers are real people facing real struggles. Roman took a hiatus from WWE to focus on his treatment, returning in February 2019 with the incredible news that he had achieved remission once again. The arena erupted with genuine emotion as one of wrestling's biggest stars announced that he had beaten cancer for the second time. As of 2025, Roman Reigns remains in remission, managing his condition with ongoing oral chemotherapy medication. The reality of chronic myeloid leukemia is that it requires lifelong management. There is no cure in the traditional sense, only careful monitoring and treatment to keep the cancer at bay. Every match Roman wrestles, every promo he delivers, every moment he spends at the top of the wrestling world is a victory not just over his opponents, but over the disease that has shadowed his entire adult life. Roman's decision to go public with his diagnosis helped raise awareness about leukemia and showed millions of fans that even the most powerful-looking among us can face invisible health battles. Speaking of raising awareness, our next legend took a similar approach when facing his own cancer diagnosis. Bret the Hitman Hart. Bret the Hitman Hart is widely regarded as one of the greatest technical wrestlers to ever live. The excellence of execution, as he was known, brought a level of realism and athleticism to professional wrestling that helped elevate the entire industry. His matches with the likes of Shawn Michaels, Stone Cold Steve Austin, and his brother Owen Hart are considered masterpieces of the craft. But outside the ring, Bret has faced challenges that required every bit of the determination and skill that made him a legend between the ropes. Prostate cancer, while aggressive if caught late, combined with skin cancer, created a double health threat that Bret would have to overcome. In 2013, Bret's doctors discovered elevated PSA levels during a routine examination, an early warning sign of potential prostate cancer. Rather than jumping immediately to aggressive treatment, Bret and his medical team opted for active surveillance, carefully monitoring the situation to determine the best course of action. This approach required incredible patience and mental fortitude, knowing that cancer might be developing while choosing to watch and wait. By 2016, the decision was made to proceed with surgery. Bret underwent a robotic prostatectomy, a minimally invasive procedure to remove his prostate gland. True to his character, Bret was open about his experience, using his platform to encourage other men, particularly those in wrestling and athletics who might feel invincible, to get regular screenings. In a post-operative interview, Bret spoke candidly about his condition and his mission to spread awareness.
I feel pretty good. I like to think, at least for right now, I'm cancer-free, but there's all the follow-ups, and I got to get checked regularly for the next couple of years, and then it'll be sort of a yearly thing where I follow up all the time.
Bret's recovery from prostate cancer was successful, but his battles with cancer weren't quite over. In 2020, he faced another diagnosis: basal cell carcinoma, a form of skin cancer that, while typically less deadly than other forms, still requires careful treatment. The growths were successfully removed, adding another victory to Bret's impressive record of overcoming adversity. What makes Bret's approach particularly admirable is how he handled disclosure. He kept his initial diagnosis private until after his successful surgery, then went public specifically to raise awareness and encourage others to get screened. His message was clear: early detection saves lives, and no one, not even the toughest of professional wrestlers, is too tough to need regular medical checkups. While Bret's story highlights the importance of early detection in treating cancer, our next Legends health battle demonstrates how catching a condition early can completely change its trajectory, particularly when that condition is one that has claimed other giants in the wrestling world: Big Show. And while Big Show would always be a giant, his condition was now under control rather than slowly killing him. The difference that early treatment made cannot be overstated. While Andre the Giant passed away at 46 from complications of untreated acromegaly, Big Show has enjoyed a wrestling career spanning over 3 decades, becoming a multiple-time world champion and one of the most recognizable figures in sports entertainment. As of now, in his early 50s, unlike some wrestlers who kept their conditions hidden, Big Show has been relatively open about his acromegaly after his surgery, though the pre-surgery period was less publicly discussed. His willingness to share his story has helped raise awareness about the condition and demonstrated that early treatment can make the difference between a long, successful career and a tragic early death. Big Show's successful management of acromegaly through early intervention provides hope, but not everyone is fortunate enough to catch the condition at such a young age. Our next Legend's experience with the same disease shows what happens when treatment comes later in life. The Great Khali. Standing at an absolutely staggering 7'1" and weighing over 350 pounds, Dalip Singh Rana, better known to wrestling fans as the Great Khali, was one of the most physically imposing figures to ever compete. The tumor was responsible for Khali's extraordinary growth, giving him the unique physical presence that made him a star, but also putting his long-term health at serious risk. The similar risks to Big Show's condition, but with later surgery, increased the complications Khali would face. Unlike Big Show, who received treatment at 19, Khali's surgery to remove the pituitary tumor didn't occur until 2012, when he was already 39 years old. But decades of untreated acromegaly had already taken their toll on his body. The later the treatment comes, the more damage has already been done. The detection of Khali's condition came through WWE's wellness program, which identified the tumor and helped facilitate his treatment. Prior to this, the condition had been kept relatively private, one that millions of people face every day, but often overlook until it's too late. Michelle McCool. Michelle McCool made history as one of the most accomplished women's wrestlers of her generation. A 2-time WWE Divas Champion and 2-time WWE Women's Champion, McCool was a pioneer who helped pave the way for the women's wrestling revolution that would transform WWE in the years following her retirement. Her athletic ability, her dedication to the craft, and her willingness to take risks made her one of the most respected performers of her era. But even champions aren't immune to the dangers that lurk in everyday life. In 2016, McCool discovered suspicious spots on her back and legs, spots that turned out to be basal cell carcinoma, the most common form of skin cancer. While basal cell carcinoma is typically the least deadly form of skin cancer, highly treatable when caught early and rarely spreading to other parts of the body, it still requires prompt treatment and serves as a serious warning sign about sun exposure and skin health. The treatment for McCool's skin cancer required excisions, surgical procedures that, in her own words, left holes cut in her skin. It's a sobering reminder that even conditions considered highly treatable can be painful, scary, and leave lasting marks. The cancer was successfully removed, and McCool has remained cancer-free since her treatment. True to the spirit of wrestlers who use their platforms for good, McCool revealed her diagnosis publicly after her treatment was complete, specifically to raise awareness about the dangers of sun exposure and the importance of sunscreen. Her message was particularly relevant for wrestlers and athletes who spend significant time training outdoors or performing under bright lights that can damage the skin over time. While Michelle McCool's story might seem less dramatic than the life-threatening conditions faced by other legends on this list, it serves an equally important purpose, reminding us that deadly diseases don't always announce themselves with dramatic symptoms. Sometimes they start as small spots that are easy to ignore, spots that can become much more serious if not caught early. Early detection was key to her successful outcome, making her story a powerful reminder for everyone watching. If you found this video informative, please click on any of the cards on your screen.